Guarantee you the analysis that you are about to hear on my show, you will not hear anywhere else. Because I'm a Mexican crossing lines.
Mm-hmm.
And you're listening to 88.1 FM KPPPLP Fargo Moorhead, where we are adding local color to your airwaves. I'm Cindy Gomez-Schempp.
And I'm Duke Gomez-Schempp.
Tonight's show, called Caravan Consequences, is going to be about the past laws against immigrants and the new laws against immigrants that this president, this administration, has continually been making. They've been making policy decisions and executive orders to ban travel into the country, to stop people from seeking asylum at the border, to put kids in cages, to take away dreamers' rights to a pathway to being here permanently. All of these things have happened under this president's administration. And so therefore, I need folks to understand the importance of what is happening with the migrant caravan right now and what we can expect to see in the weeks and the months to come. But first, I want to thank all of you who sent me information, questions, videos, etc. about this topic and others that we've been reporting on here at Mexican Crossing Lines. And I welcome more.
Oh, yeah, definitely. We really appreciate it when people do communicate with us. And we have many ways you can do it. And people pretty much use all those ways. One way is we have a message line. It's 701-566-0917. Again, the number is 701-566-0917. That's a message line. You can leave a voice recorded message, and those are kind of cool when people sometimes give us permission to use their comments or their perspective, and we put it on the air, or we keep it private. Just let us know. You can also email us. That's another good way. You can email Cindy at kpppfm.com. Email me, Duke at kpppfm.com. You can also go to Facebook. We have 3 Facebook sites. One is 88.1 FM Fargo Moorhead. A lot of people use that. You can send attachments and those sorts of things. Also, we have the People's Press Project and Mexi-Can. You can also follow Cindy on a public page she has. It's by searching at Cindy Gomez-Schempp. You can tweet us at media_PPP, and you go to kpppfm.com. That's our main website for our radio station page, where we put the podcasts up. We convert things to audio so we can play them on the air for our listening audience in Fargo Moorhead. And we've been uploading the Facebook Live videos to YouTube. Make sure you subscribe to Duke 1517. That's my YouTube channel, and that's where I'm putting all those videos. And also on our website at kpppfm.com. We'd like you to comment on the shows there, or you can send us a web form message from there. Also, we have an area where donations are at, because we're a nonprofit, non-commercial radio station. We don't do advertising. We do underwriting, but not advertising. And we need support from the community, and we've been supported by the community. If you have a business idea or you have a website or something you'd like to promote, you can make an underwriting contribution to us. It's tax deductible, and we'll put it on the air as support of our station. And if you would just like to support our station, go to kpppfm.com/donate. Click on the donation page, read on there. There's a PayPal credit card link there. There's also a way you can send checks by mail. And we really, really appreciate your support and your involvement with our show.
Yes, we do. And this particular occasion, with the information I'm going to be discussing tonight, I will appreciate it even more if you share my show in groups, if you subscribe to our YouTube channel, and make sure that you share the YouTube video of these reports, as well as put them in groups where asylum seekers, where people that are part of the caravan, where people that are involved in the reporting that I've been talking about are watching, because this information is very important in groups for Mexicans, in groups for Latinos, for anywhere that people that are brown skinned, that come from this continent, that people that are indigenous, First Nations people to this continent, like Mexicans are, make sure that they hear this message. One of the things that as a Mexican Crossing Lines, I have been given the blessing and the honor to do is to cross that southern border with Mexico. all my life, going back and forth to visit family, to stay in Mexico, to live, to work, and to study. I have done so throughout my life. And so I have an insight into what happens in the Mexican government and with the Mexican people that most Americans just simply don't have. So when they're talking about immigration policy, the border wall, the economic sanctions or problems that are happening in Mexico, narco trafficking, any of it, they lack the knowledge of the country and its inner workings to really fully understand how those things are impacting Mexicans and how they're impacting everyone else. Because of that, I named my show, my blog, and this program, A Mexican Crossing Lines, because I'm not just making people angry with my commentary, although I do that quite a bit. I'm also trying to show you that blind spot that you don't see about what's going on in Mexico. I also have the fortune of being a Mexican that's been living and working and raised in the U.S. and educated in the U.S. as well. And for that reason, and because I am fully bilingual and I am a translator, I can speak to the people in Mexico. I can speak to the people that speak Spanish. I can speak to my people and tell them what I see happening in American politics that's going to affect them. What I see happening in Mexico that is manufactured, orchestrated, or part of the propaganda of American politics, policy, and media that they don't see, that they can't understand. They can't figure out why it's happening there. Because I've already seen it on this side of the border. So, for those who speak Spanish or want to hear this program in Spanish, I will be doing a show completely in Spanish for the Spanish speakers. Para los hispanohablantes, directamente después de este programa voy a tener un programa completamente en español bilingüe para que todas las personas que quieran enterarse de las consecuencias para la gente mexicana, para México, para la gente de los Estados Unidos y para los de la caravana, pueden ver este programa en español siguiente, después de este programa. Okay, so let me start by telling you, this is really one of the reasons that prompted me to do the show today, immediately, and not wait even a second, was a new ruling that came down. As you may recall, President Trump had made a policy proclamation that he would be stopping all asylum requests. You could not make an asylum request at the southern border. Anybody coming to the southern border and requesting asylum would be denied. And he did this in anticipation of the migrant caravan that he said was coming and was full of terrorists and bad people. Okay? And what just happened today was that the White House put out a joint statement complaining about this decision of the judge. Both the Department of Homeland Security and the Department of Justice put out this joint statement about the Monday ruling, specifically President Trump's November 8th policy change barring anyone from entering the U.S. at the southern border, to apply for asylum. This is what the judge wrote in part. Whatever the scope of the president's authority, he may not rewrite immigration laws to impose a condition that Congress has expressly forbidden, wrote the judge, whom President Barack Obama nominated for the federal bench in 2012. Tagar, who's the name of the judge, reasoned that the, quote, failure to comply with entry requirements, such as arriving at a designated port of entry, should bear little, if any, weight in the asylum process. Currently, several thousand migrants are now waiting to cross at a legal entry point at San Isidro in San Diego, across from Tijuana. Many are from a caravan that drew the president's wrath in the weeks leading up to the midterm elections, when he made illegal immigration his closing argument and asserted without evidence that the caravan included criminals and unknown Middle Easterners. He labeled the situation a national emergency. Now, this is one in a series of anti-immigrant laws, as you know, as I just mentioned, that the president has been passing and or declaring either by executive order or proclamation or tweet against Mexicans and against refugees and against immigrants. And one of the only ones that wasn't completely shut down was the Muslim ban, because in a 5-4 ruling in the Supreme Court, a revised version of Trump's Muslim ban, or travel ban as they now call it, was upheld. And the reason why it was upheld is because it was done as an emergency. So the Department of Justice and the Department of Homeland Security said in a joint statement, "We look forward to continuing to defend the executive branch's legitimate and well-reasoned exercise of its authority to address the crisis at the southern border." This is what they are trying to do again now. Why is this important? Well, let me start by saying that one of the little talked about parts of the fight on this asylum ban isn't just the fact that Trump wants a specific port of entry, when in reality people who have come in documented or undocumented via any means of entry that they came in at any time can request asylum. That's the way things have always been. So there's that. But here's another thing that most people aren't talking about, which is that Trump and his administration want the right to hold asylum seekers indefinitely. Recently, the UN's, I can't think of the word right now, the UN's committee or something. It's a group that deals with immigration, passed by a majority of votes, and will ratify an agreement that most countries, except for the United States, they're only the only country that disagreed with this, have agreed to when dealing with refugees that are seeking asylum. And it's this, that putting people in detention who come here seeking asylum should never be done. And if it is done, it should only be done as a last resort. And that in the event that that last resort is required in a country, that the amount of time that the person that's seeking asylum is kept in detention has to be the smallest amount possible. So it has to be a very small, limited period of time, if it's to be used at all. And the United States didn't like that. In fact, the United States ambassador responded to this, saying that the United States is going to arrest anyone that crosses into their country undocumented, and they will prosecute them to the fullest extent of the law. And as you know, in the past, what that has included is taking and separating families, taking children, putting them in cages, and deporting their parents, hiding the paperwork, and devastating families. What this looks like in practice is cruel, and what it does is it allows the government, once again, to indefinitely hold people in detention centers, which are largely unregulated and increasingly privatized, so that investors, including many politicians, judges, and authorities in this government, are seeking to expand. And they're seeking to expand that using refugees, undocumented immigrants, etc. That is how they're going to make money. And if there's a revolving door where they're going to take them in for a day and then send them back or deport them into Mexico, they're not going to make any money off of those people.
So they're going to just keep them indefinitely. People should be outraged at this. I mean, this is like we're taking prisoner people seeking asylum in this country, and we're throwing them in jail. We're denying them to be able to, and it's only specific people. This isn't happening on all the borders. This isn't happening on the coast. This isn't happening on the northern border. This is only specifically happening on the southern border, targeted to brown people. And we're going to throw them in jail and basically ship them around to these detention centers and keep them in prison. And I mean, this is horrible. This is horrible. And this wasn't done by Congress. This wasn't done by whoever you voted for. This is being done by Trump specifically. And his cabinet and his branch of government has taken over, and they all have to listen. I mean, that's why there's troops down there, because he's the commander in chief. He's sending troops down there. And there's some horrible things that are going to happen because of all of this, and we should be outraged. You know, this is something that this country's never professed to stand for. We're supposed to be this country of freedom. We have a Statue of Liberty out there saying, bring us your tired, bring us your hungry. We'll throw them in jail. You know, they should start dismantling that thing right now.
Yeah. And, of course, you know, declaring this caravan coming to the border as a national emergency, Trump also mobilized over 5,000 troops to go to sit at the border. And if you thought that was weird, you must have thought it was even stranger when he said that if anybody were to throw a rock about a caravan that was thousands of miles away at the time, or weeks away, or days away, but he was talking about it preemptively. If someone throws a rock, I'm going to view that, the army should view that as an assault with a weapon and shoot back. So he was threatening violent response to any kind of aggression. And then thirdly, he recently made some kind of a statement that the troops, because General Mattis has been asked, what is their objective? Mm-hmm. What are they here to do? And they even took away the Operation Freedom Fighter Patriot thing or whatever. They took that off of their name. They're just Border Patrol support. And Mattis was asked and gave no answers or vague answers to every question he was asked about what their operation is and what they're there to do. So it's been shrouded in secrecy the entire time. And then recently, Trump makes a statement to them to say, maybe you're going to have another role, not just supporting Border Patrol, if you are attacked, if the caravan rushes the southern border entry. Rushes? Why is he calling it an invasion? When have we ever seen thousands and thousands of migrants or refugees or any kind of a caravan at the southern border, or at any border for that matter in the United States, rushing to get in a group aggressively during the day in front of cameras?
Yeah.
When?
Never.
So that should give you pause to question what is happening here and why it's happening right now. I'm going to speculate because there's a lot of speculating to do.
Yep.
First of all, as y'all know, the midterm elections have already passed, so Mueller has been unleashed. And I hear, and we've all been hearing, how Roger Stone is circling the drain. Mm-hmm. He's indicated he now anticipates being indicted. So does Donald Trump Jr. So do others surrounding Donald Trump and his administration. So that, the narrowing of the barrel on the sights of Donald Trump and his administration because of the investigation into Russian collusion in the 2016 election, is looming heavily over the presidency. And in addition to that, there is an embarrassing loss in the midterm elections, a win for Democrats in the House, and the ability to investigate the president with and including Adam Schiff and the recent battle over Twitter's tweets that they just had, being able to directly investigate Donald Trump and his administration, all of which they have been dying to do, waiting to do, right? So I think that there are many reasons why Donald Trump would want to distract you, call attention to something else, anything else. People already surmised this before the midterm elections. They were saying that he was calling attention to this caravan to distract away from what was going on in his administration, the daily car wreck or dumpster fire that the administration is, the daily firings, the daily embarrassing things that Donald Trump does, and the looming investigation, right?
Right.
And a lot of people in the media after the midterm elections said, see, look, he has nothing more to say about the caravan. He's not going to talk about the caravan because the caravan was never important, because the caravan was a stunt.
Mm-hmm.
The troops at the border, people are very mad that they're there. They want them to be able to come home for Thanksgiving because they feel it's a stunt. Well, I happen to think it may very well be staged, but I don't know if it's a stunt.
No, they are the military. I mean, this is the military. They have weapons. They're stringing barbed wire. I don't know how they're doing it. They're really not letting the media in too much, but
concertina wire.
You know, it's the razor wire. It's horrible things if you run into. It's what catch babies as they walk through. You know, and they've complained that there's no combat pay. Now with Trump's latest announcements, they may be getting combat pay because it looks like they're gearing up for more than just sitting there twiddling their thumbs.
Yes, I think so too. I think that's almost inevitable. So let me tell you that another foreshadowing of things to come just came on Monday when Homeland Security Secretary Kirstjen Nielsen said that the government had received reports that the migrant caravan was considering rushing the border, and they closed several travel lanes for a period of time. Now, as you may recall, last month we saw that same caravan of people push and kick and rush their way through the Guatemalan border in Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
Now, do you know how many times there had been thousands of migrants that rushed the southern border of Mexico the way that they did in a conflict with the police that included macing and hitting, and I've heard reports that 2 federal police were injured, possibly severely injured. We do not know how badly. When had we ever seen that before? Never. So again, you need to ask yourself and question, why this way, why this many people, and who's behind all of it?
Yeah.
There definitely is somebody behind all of it.
Mm-hmm.
This is not organic. This is not normal. This caravan is not organic. It is not normal. People want you to think that it is, but I'm going to tell you that it's not. You need to understand that. I am not a partisan for any party. I am not a partisan of the Republicans or the Democrats. I am neither a progressive nor a conservative. I am a reporter. I am here to tell you what I've seen and what I know. And so you need to suspend your disbelief that what I'm about to tell you is part of the rhetoric of Trump and his administration, of conservatives, of racists, of Nazis, or the extreme on the left. Because you're going to hear bits and pieces of both. It seems now that not only our country, but our media are so polarized that the only kind of information that you're getting is one extreme or the other. And I am hoping to meld those two extremes so that you have a clearer picture of what's really happening with this caravan. So, first of all, let me just say that the groups associated with this are legion at this point.
Okay.
Some groups began in Honduras. One of them, I believe, is called Pueblo Sin Fronteras, but there are others. In my recent shows in which I've talked about the caravan, I've done 2 other shows on the caravan. One is called Caravan Crisis. The other is called Caravan Conmen, and today is called the Caravan Consequences. You can check out those other shows, and I will post a link to the shows in the comment sections of this show and with the programming when it goes up on social media, so you can check them out, so you can find out how there's a bunch of con men that are exploiting this caravan, how there are a bunch of groups that are supporting and or funding and or providing security for and or funneling the caravan to Tijuana and or otherwise supposedly reporting and building awareness of and creating camps in anticipation of their arrival for, and bringing activists and organizers together and creating a media storm, you can find out who those players are and what they're really up to. But the reason why I think that's important is because that is another aspect of this migration that is unlike anything we have ever seen before. People have been migrating. Mexicans migrate. Mexican people are people that have migrated all the time. There's archaeological evidence of us migrating all the way up here and trading.
Thousands of years of migration, thousands of years of movement of people to different latitudes and back, and the trade routes, and the communities have been very flexible and have moved for thousands of years on this continent until the United States started coming up and chopping it up, and Spain started coming up and chopping it up. Those are the things that ended that migration and forced people to be on lands that they were not their ancestral lands.
And we have seen people migrate through Mexico from Central and South America in Mexico. This is not an uncommon thing. It is not uncommon to see it. It is not uncommon for Mexicans to do it. So why is there such opposition to this migrant caravan, not only in the United States, but also in Mexico? Why, unlike any other caravan or migration group that has come through Mexico, do these people have all sorts of media on them when most migrants travel secretly and without any kind of media coverage? Nobody pays for their buses. Nobody gives them security on their transport. Nobody is amassing donations and creating camps along their route so that they have a shelter and food and can show up and charge their phones. And nobody is providing them donated clothes and all of the none of that normally happens the way it is happening now. Are migrants provided support on their migration routes through Mexico? Yes, there are shelters all throughout Mexico, not just for migrants, but for people that are homeless, people that need help, domestic violence victims, just like everywhere else in the world, I assume, right? But they are not built to house this many people. They don't have the capacity to take on tens of thousands of people coming all at once and all following the same routes and all coming in together in the same cities. What that causes is a lack of resources for the communities that they are going through. And what happens when the caravan goes through a town and, as they have been doing, which has gone viral all over social media, begin complaining about the food, begin leaving gigantic piles of trash and messes that they refuse to clean up, even though there are plenty of people there asking them to be orderly, to be clean. In some places, I'm not saying all of the migrants are doing this. I'm not saying all of the people in the caravan are doing this, but some people definitely are doing this. I've seen it reported in almost every place that they have been. So for some reason, some of the people within the caravan want to give that image, that headache, that problem to the people of Mexico. This is not something typical of people that are migrating through Mexico. This is not something typical that we've seen with other migrants, that they're trashing the place, come to commit crimes. They come quietly and they leave quietly, and they're very grateful and gracious for any support or donations or help or food that they are given. They are not bad-mouthing the people that house them. They don't bad-mouth the food that is given to them. They don't trash the places they go. We've never seen this before, and it's being done on purpose. There's also been a number of fights. They're said to be fights within people within the caravan. This is also something that has not been seen on this scale. This has been seen time and again. It's been happening in Tijuana. It happened in Guadalajara. There are reports of it happening in other places where the migrant caravan stopped. And the police have had to been called in to stop these fights. So police involvement has had to get stepped up in every city where these folks are going to provide them security as they're traveling, and also to break up these clashes with either protesters, with other migrants that are in the caravan. And this is causing a lot of stress on the communities where the migrants are going through. So is it any wonder that people that are watching this happen and seeing this happen are having a reaction of anger, are demanding that their federal government in Mexico send more federal dollars to the states that are having to deal with this caravan? And now there seems to be another one headed this way from El Salvador with many thousands more people. So with no end in sight to these caravans that seem to be cropping up out of the ether, Mexico and the routes that have been chosen by the organizers of the caravan, not with the consent or with the conversation with any of these states, municipalities, or they weren't consulted. They weren't given the opportunity to say no or to weigh in on how any of this was done. It is being done to those places in Mexico and to the Mexican people and to the Mexican government. And it is unfair, and there's a reason for that anger of those people. Now, who does all of this benefit? Well, here in the United States, I'm sure Trump and his supporters are thrilled to see people walking through the streets, parading through the streets, waving Mexican flags, telling the Hondurans to get out, to leave their town, saying that they don't want them there, that they need to come in an orderly fashion, they need to follow the law, because they sound just like Trump and his people. And that makes people in America feel great, especially those who want border security, who want migrants not to come here, who don't want to grant more people asylum, who don't want refugees coming here, and who believe in the president's policies. They love that. They're like, see, look at the Mexicans.
Yeah.
They're doing the same thing we want. That's what we want. They agree with us. That's why we should get to build that border wall. Oh, and about that, let's not forget that the president campaigned on that border wall.
Oh, yeah.
He still uses it at every single one of his rallies. Build the wall, and Mexico's going to pay for it. Oh, Mexico's paying right now.
Oh.
Mexico's paying a hefty price, and Mexico is going to pay an even heavier price. Hopefully, my warning to Mexico and its people in this program and in the one that I'm going to do in Spanish right after this will help them to avoid that catastrophe. But about that wall, I don't know of any non-Trump supporter, progressive in America that believes that we absolutely necessarily have to have that wall to protect our sovereignty and our security at the southern border, because we've never been invaded by Mexico. Mexico has never been a country that aggresses on anyone. They have never attacked another country, unlike the United States.
Exactly.
There's never been a caravan of migrants or anything like that have rushed and or attacked and or anything. When Mattis was asked about what the reasoning for such a militarized response would be to how this unprecedented this is in history, the only thing that he could come up with to compare it to was when Pancho Villa came over the border. Pancho Villa was part of the revolutionary soldiers. Those are soldiers. You're talking about an aggression from someone else's soldiers that was over 100 years ago.
Yeah.
And they were part of the revolution. That's the only thing he could come up with, because there hasn't ever been anything like this. And so what kind of ammunition does Trump need to finally get Congress to force now a Congress that has a majority Democratic House to give him the funding for that wall? How on earth will he ever get the funding for that wall? How can he change public opinion about the imminent threat if we do not build it? Because that is what this caravan is being positioned to do for Mr. Trump. That is what it will do for Trump if this carries on any further. And the reason for that is because there's going to be a very well televised violent clash between the military and the Caravan, some of whom will be armed with rocks, some of whom may be armed with other things. Yeah, you heard it here first. That's why they're not sending the troops home, and that's probably why they'll get combat pay. And Trump doesn't even care about building the actual wall. He cares about the contract. He cares about the billions of dollars he gets to pass out in contracts for the building of that wall to his friends, his cronies, so that they can all line their pockets. He made promises to people. As a president, you sell the office of the presidency off piece by piece by piece to your donors. That's how American politics works. That's how politics in Mexico works too. I know, I've seen it. I know what these contracts for building, for infrastructure are worth. They're worth millions and billions of dollars. So of course, we need to have some kind of an event that would kind of force the issue in the direction that benefits Trump and his agenda.
Wow.
And let me tell you that the Thanksgiving holiday that everyone is lamenting the soldiers will be at the border for has something real to contend with. Because as I have been reporting on this show, there is a contingent of con men that are connected to the Standing Rock protest against the Dakota Access Pipeline that are now forming camps as we speak at the southern border in San Diego on the other side of Tijuana, waiting to be to service, to give medical support, food, shelter, and donations to the refugees that are going to be coming over, to the people in this caravan. And the same thing is happening in Tijuana. Camps, refugee camps. When in history has America had refugee camps that are going to be there for months or years, indefinitely sometimes, as they do in Africa and other countries? When have we ever seen such a thing being planned?
Never seen that, and especially within the U.S. borders. You know, and I think you're totally right that this catalyst for people to be really fixated on this is going to be a show. I think it's going to be a bloodbath. I think there's going to be loss of life. I think there's going to be a lot of violence. And it really bothers me that we're being taken. We're being taken, that this stuff is being staged. And also, the biggest indicator is that the Standing Rock phonies have been going out there and starting to set up their contingencies. And look how they did it at Standing Rock. It was horrible. It was horrible what they did. And it's the same players, the same phony people who've been taking their show on the road for the past, 2 years are coming back into the limelight, and people are listening to them. People are funneling money to these people to go down there to basically aid and abet Trump, to be able to have his contracts and have his way and have his domination and his dictatorship supported.
And let me just tell you that I know that some of the protests at Standing Rock, we now have learned that many of the almost every single one where there was a violent clash with security for the Dakota Access Pipeline or the police or anybody were staged. There were actual Hollywood actors at Standing Rock, B, D, C list actors, you name it, but they were there. There were activists. There were people that coalesced behind many what might be called left-wing groups, coalesced. People that support Palestine, like Linda Sarsour, people that are democratic socialists, like Ocasio-Cortez, people that are supporting Black Lives Matter were there. native nations from all around the globe were called to stand in solidarity. Mama Ladana and Chase Iron Eyes and Winia Locke and the Indigenous Environmental Network and all of these leadership, Dave Archambault, all of this leadership from Standing Rock called for the nations of the world to come and stand in solidarity, but they didn't tell you they made a deal with Hollywood, with NGOs, with all of these financiers, with the people of Nexus, with all of these different, with the Veterans Stand for Standing Rock, Wesley Clark Jr., Michael A. Wood Jr., with media groups like TYT. They didn't tell you that a lot of these things that were going to happen at Standing Rock, these protests, these marches, were going to end in violent clashes with the police where actual people would get hurt. Because you know what that would mean? It would mean that they were entrapping people. It would mean that they're responsible for Sophia Wolanski's arm getting blown up. It would mean that they're responsible for anyone that got hurt or put falsely in prison like they did to Kathleen Bennett, or in an early grave like they did to Mary Trujillo. They would be financially liable and criminally liable for creating the environment in which those people came innocently without knowing that they were planning those violent clashes to cause people to have sympathy, to pull on the heartstrings of people who have been traditionally divided against Native Americans in North Dakota, in favor of oil, against police, in favor of militarization, against all of these things. They wanted not just to have a conversation about those things, they wanted to push the envelope. They wanted to make everyone in America and the world look at Standing Rock, look at Morton County, look at its practices, its policies, the way that we run our energy and our economy, and go, oh my God, this is the moment to act. They wanted to motivate people emotionally and financially to end our dependence on oil and to go into clean energy, because many of them who are now in government, who came right out of Standing Rock and went right on to the White House to govern, to legislate. They want a new green energy policy. And you know what? Happy joy. Good day for them. But you know what? Here's the thing. Why do you have to do it with theatrics? Why do you have to do it? Why can't you just be honest with the American people and say that that's your agenda? You don't have to create a camp and have Indians dress up in full regalia and go out there and put on a show and lure a bunch of innocent people into dangerous clashes with the police and do documentaries and bring Hollywood people so that they can have a second run at their career, and stuntmen and rapists and thieves and all sorts of crazy people together for a political agenda, for a policy and energy agenda. You don't have to do those things so that you can push the envelope on the policies and politics that you want to push. But you know, that's how it's always been done in America. Now, I don't know, because a lot of people say that 9/11 was a conspiracy theory, that 9/11 was a false flag. I do know one thing. After 9/11, the president had pretty much carte blanche to do whatever he wanted to increase security for America.
Yep.
People were just shocked, horrified, angry. They wanted revenge, and they wanted to feel secure again. But what that did was to open the door, as it has never been opened before, to mass surveillance of Americans, to loss of rights for Americans, and even more so for refugees, for people seeking asylum, and for Muslims. What was less discussed, but very palpable to this Mexican crossing lines, was the fact that Mexico paid a huge price. They immediately closed the border. They made it much harder for people to come and go from Mexico, which we have always been doing, to pick your crops.
Yeah, exactly.
And work in your meat packing plants and raise your children so while you go to college and go to your yoga class. And so it changed the way that we migrated. It changed the way that Mexicans were seen. It was from that point forward that the rhetoric of terrorists began to apply to Mexicans equally as it did to Muslims. And the idea that a terrorist, Muslim terrorist, could be coming through the southern border began to spread. So that no matter how you sliced it, Mexico and its border needed to be secured at all costs to protect America. That echo chamber of fear, trying to build that wall, build up security, and give more money, it's always been around, but it's for a reason. It is for the money itself. It is for the agencies that money was promised to. Donald Trump took millions of dollars away from the Coast Guard, from FEMA, from the Department of Homeland Security, from a whole bunch of agencies that could probably use that money right now to help the people in the wildfires and the people that just went through the hurricanes that are not helping those people because they don't have the resources or the funding to fund ICE, to fund Border Patrol, to fund what Trump wants, his agenda. And he wants more. And there's one way he can do it. He needs to drive Americans' fears about the caravan, about the southern border, about Mexico, about the whole thing. And then he'll get his money, he'll get his funding, and he'll get his wall.
You know, and that wall is going to cost us as a society because it is so expensive, and they're going to have to cut Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid. Any social program is going to get axed because it's such an incredible amount of money that would be needed to fund that. Plus, the president has to sign off on the budgets. The president can close our government next month. He has to sign a continuing resolution for the government to operate. I believe he's going to just stop the function of government and hold all of us hostage till he gets what he wants.
Well, during that hostage period, what would happen if there was a violent clash between the Army, the Border Patrol, and the caravan?
Exactly.
Then the Democrats would lose their moral superiority and the leverage that they have in power against a country clamoring for security at the southern border from these migrants, from this caravan. So, is it any surprise that there is a contingent within this caravan that is in the media in Mexico, and even before they got to Mexico, in Honduras, openly demanding entry into the United States? Not requesting, not begging for, not meekly asking like every other humble migrant that has crossed the southern border. No, demanding. This has been repeated in the way that, and you know, I've seen a lot of conversations, a lot of discussions online. People are saying, well, you know, just because one of the people in the caravan said they don't like beans and that the food wasn't fit for hogs, doesn't mean all of the people in the caravan are the same. Don't be a racist. That news station that reported that is from the right. So that's all they want to show. They want to show the bad people. And listen to me. The left wing and the right wing, y'all got hung up on the same nonsense at Standing Rock. And you weren't able to report the truth of what happened because of it. Don't you see the same thing happening here? Mexicans need to wake up. That's exactly what's happening there. There are people, just like at Standing Rock, that innocently went there to watch some native dancing and listen to what the people had to say about their, you know, water and the pipeline, or to bring down a donation, or, you know, for the day, for a week. Tens of thousands of people did that. But others, like Wesley Clark Jr. and Michael A. Wood Jr., who made a call out to the vets, They organized that in advance, well in advance. I also show you how they coordinated with Hollywood actors, PR people in Hollywood that brought actors to the camp, and also B-list and D-list and wannabes, extras, to show up to have these violent confrontations with the police, like on the night of November 20th when they were out there. And of course, these are the stories that live in infamy that made the Morton County officers look so bad because they were shooting water cannons at them for hours and hours and hours. Let me show you something. You may recall that on my last show, I showed you one of the I talked about a number of people, of these actors at Standing Rock, and fake medics. There was fake lawyers. There were fake medics. There were fraudulent headsmen. There were felonious headsmen, felonious security people. There were raping security people. There were thieving security people, lying security people.
There was drugs being sold in drug-free zones. People are drinking alcohol in places that they professed there was no alcohol.
Cats and dogs living together. Mass hysteria. No, but it's true. I mean, I jest, but I don't, because it's true. These things were happening out at Standing Rock. People know that now. And I found out the hard way because we were trying to exonerate Kathleen Bennett from the false charges lodged against her. And I found out that a lot of the people in the camp were all in on this frame up, that they used a guy impersonating a marshal and also Army Ranger.
Yep.
And that they used a veteran that came from Arapaho Nation that became their spokesperson, that they used an ex-meth dealer to head up the camp and make agreements with Governor Burgum about their closing. Menape Lemaire, that they had a fake lawyer, Red Wolf Pope, scrounging up donations from people for their lawsuit against Donald Trump, with Juanita Jumping Eagle, Chase Iron Eyes' wife, who turned out to not be a lawyer and turned out to be a rapist that was filming and raping women and his many properties in several states that he rented out as Airbnbs. We found out that they were kidnappers and rapists that took a young lady and kept her in a hostage situation and raped her at knife point and beat her with a weapon here in Minneapolis, and was recently convicted for that kidnapping and rape. We found out a lot of things about the people involved in the cover-up of this frame-up of Kathleen Bennett, and the people that were directly involved in kidnapping Mary Trujillo and putting her daughter in jail. And we have continued to follow what they went and did at other pipelines, where they are now. And I told you in horror the other day, they're at the Mexican border now. They're in Mexico. They're in Mexico City. They're telling the caravan where to go. They're helping bus them. They're filming them. They're making sure they provide security. They're calling on water protectors to unite. The eagle and the condor. The prophecy must come true. We're coming whether you want us or not. And we're going to make the decisions in Mexico about what's going to happen to a contingent of thousands of Hondurans and thousands of Salvadorians that nobody consulted with Mexico about. That's some colonized ass thinking, if you ask me.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that it's very wrong to put all of this on Mexico and then simply expect Mexico to deal with it, and to not be angry, to not protest it, to not want to run these people out of town, especially when they're behaving the way that they are, and they're doing it purposefully so that they can complain about the treatment of Mexico and demand entry into the United States, and so that they have a humanitarian and or a crisis, like the Backwater Bridge.
Exactly.
A crisis that calls both sides to a head, a crisis like they had at Turtle Island. They created a crisis like they had out there in the fields where the dogs attacked the protesters. They created a crisis so that there would be a clash, so that the pepper spray could come out, so that the rubber bullets could be shot, so that the people could be maced, and so it could all be filmed, so it could all be shown.
Yep.
So you could see it in the Awake movie that it's available on Netflix, which documents many of these crisis actors and liars and thieves. I will continue to call them that because many of them are, and they know exactly who they are. And I recently called out Lolly B. Her real name is Laura Berger. Laura Christina Livingston Berger, who now has transracial Indianed into Lolly B and wants you to believe that she is an Indian from Standing Rock, that was at Standing Rock. She recently was called out on my show for supporting another recent scam that I reported on, where one of the water protectors, you may recall, Marcus Mitchell, who claimed to have gotten his eye shot out by, I don't know, because he said it was Morton County, and then he said it was the National Guard.
Yep.
His story keeps changing. It's dizzying to follow. But this man put out a video that was shared by Lolly B, by Joy Brunn of the Indigenous Environmental Network, by many of the leadership of Standing Rock, including LaDonna, by John Gonzalez, by Myron, all of these people. This was shared far and wide. Immediately put money in the GoFundMe of Marcus Mitchell, hero water protector that confronted the police and at Standing Rock and was severely injured. He's been shot in the chest. Twice, y'all. He needs your funds right now. And thousands of dollars started pouring in. One of the vets that was with the Vets for Standing Rock that was one of these people sharing this information, put out live streams collecting money. Her name was Mitra Sin. And all of these folks, with the commonality of being water protectors at Standing Rock, were sharing a fraud. One of many that they have been perpetrating and or sharing. Pseudoscience, frauds, I mean, complete fabrications. The guy made up the whole scenario. He recorded himself on a live stream, pretended dying, crying, coughing, seizing, and John Gonzalez played it on his live stream with tears in his eyes. He looked like Brett Kavanaugh trying to cry.
He did.
So that you would give thousands of dollars to defraud people of thousands of dollars. I believe, though most of these fraudsters that I've exposed deny it, I believe they knew and still know that they're liars and frauds and that they scam people. So that when they tell you, when they get caught, when I expose their scam and show you, like I did with Marcus, that he used an x-ray that was posted 12 years ago in a Japanese medical book of an injury that could not have possibly happened to him. A quick reverse Google search image would have told any of these phonies that were sharing out this emergency and telling people to PayPal him, Western Union him, please, for the love of Christ, you need your help. Any one of them could have done that search and realized. Any one of them could have scratched the surface further and known. But I think they already knew he was a fraud. I think they know that behind what they did is a fraud, is a lie. And so therefore they promote each other. They come what may, ride or die, no matter what the scam is. And Lolly B was one of them. So I called her out, and she posted this the other day, crying to her audience of followers that she's been slandered for willing to be seen and known online. No, you were spreading and still defending up until very recently, even after the fraud was discovered, a scammer who defrauded people out of thousands of dollars. I only wish that what happened to the GoFundMe scammers, that took $500,000 nearly from donations of kind people whose heartstrings were pulled online when they told the story of a homeless man that lent them $20.
Oh, yeah.
And they were all in on scamming people.
Mm-hmm.
I hope that I wish that these people would be prosecuted and held to account so that they would shut up about the slander.
Mm-hmm.
No, it's called reporting. You might want to try it sometimes. I also told you that the PR person that worked for the Veterans Stand for Standing Rock, among others, she wasn't the only one, but among others, Seven McDonald, she was one of many because there was another one, Maggie Day, and then there was Winnie Wong that was working with the Bernie campaign. All of these people were helping to promote the phonies out at Standing Rock, all of their media events afterwards, their documentaries, their appearances in colleges and institutions around the world, so that they can keep raising money and they can keep pushing their agendas of green energy and they can keep doing all of these things that they do. But it doesn't matter who they hurt along the way. It doesn't matter that innocent people who don't know that they are literally, what's it called? Not couch surfing. It's called astroturfing. Astroturfing, yeah. Real issues, real problems, real issues. Immigration is a real issue. Racism against refugees and migrants is a real problem. Hate against Native Americans, voter suppression against people of color, police brutality against, those are all real problems. You don't need to fabricate something to get people's heartstrings pulled so that they'll act. There are plenty of real stories and genuine issues, but these people are too lazy to look for them, so they just go and manufacture them. And of course, they want to use their own actors, most of whom are white people pretending to be Indians. Mm-hmm. They want to use white people to lead a cause that should be led by indigenous people, so they'll get someone and pretend Indian them into the role. And they'll use sellouts, like those that we found at the Indigenous Environmental Network and at the Standing Rock leadership, that are willing to help them. And now that they're going to Tijuana, one of those many activists out in California that goes by the name of Michelle Manos, now goes by the name of Michelle Eileen, recently posted she's in Tijuana. Mm-hmm. She was called there, not as an activist, just to bear witness to these poor migrants crossing the southern border. Because this is a thing that disaster tourists do. They go where the suffering is, and it doesn't hurt that it's right there by Disney World, good shopping, and, a nice margarita. I mean, it doesn't hurt, right? So there she is, and she puts a post on this, and none other than Seven McDonald, the organizer for the Standing Rock nonsense, says to her, "Way to go!" And Michelle Eileen says, "Thanks, Seven. I'm learning." And Seven McDonald says, "Oh my God, we all are, hopefully."
Wow.
You ain't learned nothing but to keep on scamming.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't know, Seven McDonald is the daughter of Country Joe. Yep. The Country Joe of Country Joe and the Fish that played at Woodstock.
Yep, anti-war. 1, 2, 3, 4. What are we fighting for? Don't ask me, I don't give a damn. The next stop is Vietnam. And it's 5, 6, 7. Open up the pearly gates. Well, there ain't no time. Wonder why. Whoopee, we're all gonna die.
Yes, that Country Joe and the Fish. So a lot of the people that are in the organization and the leadership right now, whether they're Indian or whether they are white, come from actual wealth and power. Like Wesley Clark Jr. comes from General Clark, who ran for president and is currently brokering energy deals with other countries and on behalf of corporations and organizations for which he's investing. And the sons and daughters of actors and singers of, that's who they're using currently in America and in at Standing Rock, in the Standing Rock leadership or indigenous movement leadership in the United States, to work together. Here's a post by Lolly talking about how she is going to go down there. Now, if you didn't watch my last show, you should go watch it because I showed you she's not a medic. And like a lot of the people that were at Standing Rock that claim to be medics, that claim to be paramedics, that claim to be, they weren't.
Yep.
Like Mulaney Stoneman, the person that kidnapped the elderly woman with dementia that I just told you, we saved from her grip of death, who falsely accused Kathleen Bennett and is still out there saying now she wants to work with helping missing and murdered Indigenous women.
That's because Heitkamp's bill got passed and there's money now.
Yeah. And Mulaney has her hand out. She's a kidnapper, so you should give her the job of finding the women that are kidnapped. What? They are so dogged. It doesn't matter that they don't have the skills and or knowledge. They're going to claim it anyway. And Lolly B is an entitled such a person as that. She's an entitled person. She comes from wealth and power with Hollywood connections, from millionaires. And she's trying to pretend to be an Indian because she's gross like that. She has to appropriate even our suffering, even our history that does not belong to her. Here she says, had an unexpected change of plans today, so I feel I am being directed to this stand. I would like to offer mental health support services. I ran the emotional well-being team at Standing Rock and hablo español también and have worked as a bilingual therapist. I am self-sufficient in a vehicle and have an emotional support dog with me as well. I have some social media reach, so can help organize for supplies and share videos to raise awareness about needs. And the woman, Vivian Infirmary, this is part of the Asylum Seeker Support Network I showed you that was peopled by a lot of the people at Standing Rock that we exposed on my show as having been involved with framing an innocent woman, which we had to exonerate while they went kicking and screaming along the way, calling me a liar, calling our reporting a lie. And the woman that responds to her says, excellent, let's connect, message me, and let's talk about the training I'm working on for emotional trauma and first aid. Looking forward to working with you. These are the people that are planning to start a camp, like a refugee camp. And they're the people that so miserably ran the camp at Standing Rock, put people's lives in danger, lied to them about these orchestrated theatrical clashes with the police that were only for show, that permanently injured many people, are going to run these camps for the Caravan? Wow. That seems like a really stupid idea to me.
Yeah.
And look, remember that Lolly has a social work degree and a sociology degree.
And she has a lot of hours of yoga.
Many hours of yoga. And I don't think any of the people in the Caravan need that. She shouldn't be the head of anything. Here's somebody that gave recent love to Lolly B on her post about the slander. Lolly B said, Vanessa, you are my biggest hero. This is Vanessa Bolin. Vanessa Bolin Clemens, a.k.a. Red Bull, who signed a false police report against Kathleen Bennett, whom we called out on this show for putting a woman that is a poor historian for herself, that Vanessa knew to have dementia, that Vanessa had seen before and heard about. And together with the fake marshal that went in to take this elderly woman from her family, put Mary Trujillo on an ambulance to the hospital by herself, knowing she was almost nonverbal and couldn't speak for herself. That is what Vanessa Bolin did to an elderly 82-year-old woman with dementia. What kind of heartless, first seek to do harm person could do that and call themselves a healer or a medic? Or claim to be a paramedic or an EMT? Well, none other than Vanessa Bolin. And then she had the audacity of writing a false police report turned into Morton County and used against Kathleen Bennett, keeping her in jail for 6 months, while me and others repeatedly tried to reach out to her and asked her to do the right thing and say the truth and tell the truth that this woman was not abused, that she lied, that the others that she did this in cahoots with lied too, so that Kathleen didn't have to spend any more months in jail and she could go and be reunited with her family. But Vanessa refused. Vanessa dug in her heels deeper, and so did all of the other people that I showed you. Lied, patently lied, made up a story out of whole cloth to ruin someone's life and possibly put them in jail for the rest of their days. That's what Vanessa does. That's what these people do. And they don't care who gets hurt. Mm-hmm. They don't care what happens to the people that they come in contact with. As long as they end up on the documentary, as long as they can get that GoFundMe money, mm-hmm. as long as you paying for their trip and their Mai Tai, as long as they can look like heroes while being zeros, as long as they can keep failing upward, that's all they care about. This is disaster tourism at its worst. And the people that are using all of these folks to go and do damage at other pipelines, to go and do damage in other towns, to go and create all of these phony marches that are fighting each other, Nazis against Antifa and all of this other nonsense that gets people killed. While all of that is happening, the people at the top, the people in power like the Wesley Clark seniors, people like President Trump and people like Roger Stone, people in the administration are taking advantage of this on both sides, Democrats and Republicans and independents. They're all taking a bite. And it's at the expense of the caravan. It's at the expense of the innocent people within that caravan who don't know what they're headed for, who don't know what they're walking into. And Mexico and Mexicans. That's who's going to have to pay the piper, folks. And that pisses me off because mm-hmm. they've done this over and over and over again. And I've been reporting on it for the better part of 2 years now. And they're still walking around doing the same thing.
Exactly.
And they feel like they're entitled to do it. Remember when I told you that the veterans were being called out by Myron Dewey? And I was like, what? Mm-hmm. Myron Dewey is calling for veterans from the United States to go into Mexico and walk with this caravan? Mm-hmm. What the hell is going on? That's like calling for military people from one country to invade another.
Yep, exactly.
That's what they want. They want a violent clash between these two countries or the appearance of that by any means necessary. And it's a photo op. For them, it's a photo op. It's a documentary opportunity. It's a way for them to get their face in front of a camera on a political issue that will help their upcoming campaign or the contributions to them. It's an opportunity, just like they did at Standing Rock. It's an opportunity for them, and they're going to take that opportunity. Jill Stein took that opportunity. She didn't even mind having to go to the Flint Flop House where the Standing Rock phonies were taking resources from black people poisoned in their water. Jill Stein and all of the other politicians that are opportunists, they'll go down there. They'll take the photo op. That's why do you think they took the caravan to San Isidro? Why do you think they took the caravan to Tijuana? Because it's closer to the Hollywood people mm-hmm. that are going to be in the documentary, that need to be in the photo op. They don't want to have to travel to where migrants would normally go. These people were always routed for this one location. All of this is planned. Every bit of it. Well, guess what, folks? The veterans are already getting involved. Just as signaled by Myron Dewey of Digital Smoke Signals. Already happening. Encuentro 2018 gives Veterans for Peace deported veteran members the opportunity to unite with those feeling the injustices of being considered as less than human beings, but also the opportunity to share ideas and strategies with those brothers and sisters that support the fight for the rights of those not able to fight for themselves, like those vulnerable to hate and racism that is threatening the peace of our nations. We will uncover the connections between these struggles and the plight of the deported U.S. veterans to countries around the world and the unfair punishment and political detention of immigrants who've served in the U.S. Armed Forces. We plan to send 15 veterans to stand in solidarity with SOA and other members of Veterans for Peace. Veterans for Peace members will march through Nogales, Arizona, and meet us on the Mexican side of the border. We will participate in workshops and planning to end the U.S. oppressive and militarized foreign policy in Latin America and act in solidarity with organizations and movements working for injustice and peace throughout the Americas. And could you please send them some money?
Yep.
Money, 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 money.
Mm-hmm.
PayPal me.
Yep.
This is terrifying.
Yeah, no
and
kidding.
for the people that are in Mexico, I hope you send this to the media. I hope you send this to the police, to the federal government. I hope you send this to everyone and anyone that you can in Mexico so that they know what these folks are up to and what their connections are and their political agendas behind them. Because people need to know about that. Another one of the Standing Rock phonies who helped to fund getting the meth-addled Dean Deadman, a.k.a. drone pilot Shai Bidzel, from Standing Rock out to California for who Lord knows what, and who also ended up here in a drunken stupor that we had to throw out of our house, is Dee Dee Myers, one of Mater, a.k.a. Michael Fassig's warriors, one of the main creators of his keyboard warriors, who continue to wreak havoc on social media against anyone who dares speak out about all of the Standing Rock actors and phonies and felons and aggressors. Dee Dee Myers is also going to go down there.
Well, she lives
God
near there,
help
it says.
them.
Yes.
She says, I am a WFR and CMT available to help organize, mobilize op. It's an operation. You
Yep.
see how it's a military operation?
Yep.
Do you see how it is?
She's talking that way.
Looking to deploy
Yep.
to Butte County as I'm based in San Francisco. And someone says, Dee Dee, I'm heading down from Northern California mid-December if you'd like to caravan. And she said, thank you for the heads up. I can't deploy south, but can support the southern deployment. Looking to be in Butte County in December. This is planned, and it's going into December, folks.
Yep, exactly.
Don't you know? And let me show you how it was staged. Okay? This was just posted by Lolly B today. She was reminiscing about one of her favorite memories, the night that people were getting water cannon maced, and the night that Sophia Wolanski got her arm almost blown completely off, and that all of these people were injured and somebody nearly died of a heart attack.
Yeah,
all the stuff that you heard in the news.
Yeah, and it's 2 years ago today, because it's November 20th.
Yep, it's the anniversary. This is what Lolly B, Laura Christine Livingston Berger, has posted on her page about it. I'm just going to read one excerpt of this nonsense, but that reads like a novel, a love novel.
Yeah.
You know? It reads like it's like she's masturbating to the memory of it. Seriously.
Oh, yeah.
As I approached the bridge, I saw the mist of water, and at first I thought it was tear gas. Triumphant yells of Maniwachoni as people basked in the water cannons, the floodlights illuminating their silhouettes as they were doused again and again. The irony of the police weaponizing water against the water protectors was twisted, but the fact that we could still celebrate the water even in that moment was a testament to our loyalty.
Oh, my God.
Who the F refers to a night when people got injured to the degree I just described, and people were frozen, and there was over 700 people with hypothermia? Who the hell describes that as basking
Yeah.
and celebrating.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you did hear that Ed Higgins here was standing in front of the cannon and going, "Roo!" and egging on the cops for more. Do you remember that guy?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, by the way, watch out, California. He's in Chico. Watch out, people. It just hit by the worst, most devastating wildfires to ever happen in California. There's a predator in your backyard.
Mm-hmm.
He's a thief. He's a fraud. And he's very dangerous. He has a fraudulent, supposed media network called Activate Now that has been tracked through hurricane after hurricane as a disaster vulture that preys upon people, assaults women, and is involved in the cover-up of one of those rapes that somebody just got convicted for recently. So are many of the other people that worked at Activate Now. So, let me tell you more about what is going on within this caravan and what you can expect to happen. I want to share a couple of articles that will, I think, help you understand this a little bit better. The first one that I was just reading from earlier about the asylum stuff, the asylum ruling, it was from the Washington Post, as is the one I'm going to be referring to right now. The first one is about the judge blocking the asylum ban. The second one is about why this caravan got so big, how it got so big, and who was leading it, who created it. Because one thing that really made reporting and understanding what happened out at Standing Rock was who coordinated it, who paid for it, what political agendas were behind it, and who were the organizers behind those political campaigns and agendas and people. Because no one would fess up to that, right? They wanted you to believe it all happened organically. Mm-hmm. That LaDonna found out they were going to do this thing, and she started crying on a live stream one day and started saying, "Please help me." And just thousands of people just showed up with donations and love.
Yep, $2 million came in.
And millions of dollars just showed up in her back door. They want you to believe that the people that went there from the Veterans Stand, they weren't all working together previously and or had planned to have violent clashes with the police that were filmed all over the country and the world. They didn't want you to know that there was any coordination behind the scenes of any of it. So, of course, nobody would confess to being behind it. But as I have shown you in the reporting on a Mexican crossing lines, there was coordinated effort. There was planning. There was money. There was payments. There was financing of a lot of the folks involved in the leadership and the clashes and the theatrics that took place at Standing Rock. And there are also in this caravan, in addition to that, there are organizers that are supporting this from organizations like the Indigenous Environmental Network and other indigenous-led or created, invented groups that came out of Standing Rock that are financing and supporting the camps at the border for the refugees when they arrive, for the caravan for when they arrive, and inside and through their routes in Mexico and Central America. Those people we have been able to trace directly to what happened out at Standing Rock and their crimes there. But there's also coordination of organizations in Mexico. So these groups are coordinating with people in Mexico. They're coordinating with organizations in Mexico, with media in Mexico. They're also coordinating with groups in Honduras, with groups in El Salvador. They are also coordinating with activists. Many of the interviews that I have seen of media people questioning people in the caravan, especially when they're American reporters, don't realize, don't know, or don't care that they're interviewing Mexicans, not Hondurans. And I suspect that those Mexicans that are traveling in those groups that I've heard in these reports are not the sort that are migrating. They're not the sort that are integrating this caravan for protection, because they sound like they're very well educated and have a lot of money. They sound like they're organizers. And in fact, when one reporter from Mexico did interview a group from the Caravan and noticed the very Mexico City accent of one of the person he was interviewing, and questioned him about whether or not he was an actual member of the Caravan. He admitted that no, he wasn't. He's actually an activist, an organizer that is traveling with the Caravan to do PR, to speak to the media on their behalf.
I see. Yeah.
To keep them safe and to advocate for them with the authorities where they arrive. But what they are really doing, in addition to that, if that is the case, if that is what they're really doing, these activists and people like Myron Dewey that want people to travel with the Caravan, and that's all, that still is super weird and strange and has never been seen before in the history of migrating. But that's not all they're doing. What they're also doing is propaganda and messaging to the media, and they want to sensationalize everything. So they're creating these scenarios, kind of like what you heard at Standing Rock, like they pulled them out of Inipi and they were naked.
Yes, that's
and
right.
they're like they shot the water cannons at them in below freezing weather, because it needs to be over the top. So you go, dear God in heaven, what's happening? It feels like I'm in a movie, and it's because you are.
Yep.
They Trumaned us at Standing Rock, and they're going to Truman us down at the border. So what these people have been doing in the media in Mexico is saying the people here in the city of insert city where they're currently staying and being fed and housed and supported with donations have treated us like crap. The food is subpar. They don't have showers. They don't have toilets that are working. The toilets are disgusting and they're not sanitary. They're not fit for humans. We need to leave here. We need to get to the United States. Many in the Caravan are saying this directly to the media, and I can tell by their accents they're actually Hondurans, and they actually look like they're part of this caravan of migrants that are coming to the United States. Some of the people that are interviewed are just questioned point blank about what their reason for migrating is. And what I can tell you is that consistently I found that many of the people that are genuinely fleeing for their lives, as they say most of them are, have a story that is palpably true. And one of the things that in my mind bolsters the fact that it is true is their shocked storytelling of what happened to them. The fact that they've had to leave everyone they love behind, and or their family was just all murdered, so they're very sad. And what they will tell you is this. They don't say, I deserve the right to go to the United States and have a good life and find freedom. And they're like, I beg for shelter and security. I am afraid for my life. I will take any and all help that I can get from anyone. So, the reporter would ask, would you be willing to accept asylum from Mexico? Mexico is offering the refugees asylum. You're welcome to stay here. We have jobs available. Is that something you would consider doing instead of going all the way up to wherever the heck they're taking you? And the woman, and many of the people that are questioned this way, most of whom are women, I have to say, but several of the men that I saw interviewed that had similar stories of like, I am scared for my life, said, yes, Mexico's beautiful. The people here are very nice to us. We've gotten very good care. I would love to stay. I'm going to sign up. I don't want to keep traveling. And see, to me, that seems like what a normal person that really is just fleeing for their life would do.
Yeah.
Not say, hey, this is a poop hole and I can't wait to get out of it. The horrible people of Mexico, they suck. They haven't done it. And of course, that's infuriating to the people in Mexico who are doing all of these things. A lot of them from donations that are coming from the citizenry, because the federal and state resources aren't enough for such huge numbers of people. And yet they're still managing to care for them, feed them, shelter them, and support them on their path. Meanwhile, a contingent that seems almost hell-bent on kicking a hornet's nest wherever they go and making the people in those cities where they're being hosted turn on them, have dumped trash, clothes, food that was given to them, unopened, unwrapped, sounding very similar to Standing Rock.
Yep, it does.
Donations. And they don't just throw them in the trash, they throw crap on them so that they can't just be cleaned up and used. Like they make it so that nothing there is salvageable. People in Mexico that live in extreme poverty, that number in the millions, over half of the population lives in poverty. So you can just imagine what it does to the average Mexican's conscience to see people who claim that they are fleeing for their lives and begging for asylum and help reject food and make a mess and act like entitled people who don't care about the folks hosting them. And what has this done? What is the effect of that? The effect of that is that the Mexican people in the towns hosting them have come out in protest against them, have spoken out against them, have shown in the media the messes, the interviews of them complaining about the food or the accommodations, have shown, the media has shown how many of the people that are sitting outside of the shelters saying they're not being allowed inside. There aren't clean bathrooms. There's no running water. No one in the shelters is giving them food, showing them lying by walking into the shelters and showing the food stations, the clean bathrooms, the water, and the accommodations that many of the members of the Caravan are enjoying inside. And the question that is begged here is, why are so many in this contingent lying? Why would they say there's no food when there is? That the bathrooms are horrible and that the conditions are not humane when they are? Why would they be making accusations against the very people that are hosting them and treating them pretty well by all accounts, when it's obvious that they're just trying to kind of kick dirt in the face of the Mexican people? I don't understand it, but it seems like an evil plot, but it also serves as a perfect excuse. Why wouldn't the people being offered asylum have the opportunity to just stay in Mexico? Well, why would you want to stay in a country where you're telling everyone along the route Mexicans treated you like crap, didn't feed you adequate food, didn't give you adequate shelter, didn't offer you adequate job opportunities or asylum, and kind of forced you to leave by their inhospitality, while they're the ones being inhospitable, and then be able to turn around and show in the media that is now increasingly from both sides of the border here in the United States and in Mexico, showing the Mexicans acting like Trump supporting white nationalists. In their justly deserved anger at what is being done to them, their towns, and the people. How they're being maligned in the media. So I'm here to set the record straight so that you know what they're really doing and what's really going on. It's pretty disgusting. What are your thoughts on that, Duke?
Oh man, there's so much to take in. But you and I know that you thousands of people just don't travel all on their own. There's organizing, there's organization behind it. And I was watching some of those videos with you, and it was interesting because a reporter was asking people the same three questions, but then there were other things that were coming out, as they answered the questions. And one of them said, "No, I'm not a paid actor. I'm not a paid actor." I said, "Where did that come from?" And I thought that was really interesting. And then one person mentioned that there were organizers that got them all together in the beginning, that there was organizers that he had listened to and was paying attention to. And, those things to me are a little strange. And in fact, the video that you translated the other day in the show at the end, when the people were dropped off in the middle of nowhere and they're waiting for other buses, there was the whole thing about, they didn't feel safe going on the bus. But I thought, he was naming things. Where is the human rights representative? Where is this? Where is that? I thought, wow, these folks are getting these high level people to be there to support them in this travel. This does sound strange, and I don't have the experience that you do, but I've seen the documentaries and I've seen the train that the boys basically travel through Mexico to come to the border to be able to cross the border, and people have to throw food up to them as they're going by. Many of them fall off the train, die, they get robbed. They don't actually make that trip, but that's a sort of migration I've been used to seeing. I'm not used to seeing bus terminals full of people, shelters full of people are getting fed and clothed and given supplies, and then going, in a matter of days, going 400 or 500 miles by bus. And especially when they started out walking, that all of a sudden people are being bused all the way across the country. They're already in Tijuana in a week's time. And we were thinking it would be like months since they were going to walk, it would be months of walking. And, there's people that cross the desert. There's been people crossing the desert for years. This is a totally different picture, and a lot of suspicion, a lot of wondering what is really going on and looking for those sorts of answers.
Yeah. And I mean, I have been for the last 2 years baffled by the story of Kathleen Bennett, baffled by the reaction to what we reported on of so many of the so-called leaders out at Standing Rock, of the organizations that supported many of these fraudsters and dangerous people that we've called out, that continued to support them even after we called them out, that continued to support them even though they were attacking our reporting as we were getting this woman out of jail, as we were exonerating her, as we were getting her mother back home. In fact, we personally delivered Kathleen Bennett to her home in Las Vegas. That's the kind of personal touch we put on reporting on this story, and we saw it through to its very end. And for a long time, I have been baffled at the lack of response to remove these predatory people from the movement of whatever it is that they want to call it, whether it's a progressive agenda to protect the sacred, as they call it, to find missing and murdered Indigenous women, as Mulaney wants to do, to help children, to whatever it is. I know that the people that we've reported on that were involved in this crime should be no part of those kinds of humanitarian missions or disaster relief or anything like that. They don't have the right to do that because they are dangerous, right? So that's exactly why I wanted to make sure that we warned everyone that listens to our show of what they're doing now with this. The other article in the Washington Post is talking about some other aspects of this caravan, I think, that will go over so that you can understand a little bit better what is happening. So I've called into question the reason for the route and the reason for the numbers. This article actually questioned how is it that roughly 5,000 Central American migrants walked through the southern walked through southern Mexico toward the U.S. and who's leading them. Do you want to kick off that article real quick, dude?
Yep, it's how the migrant caravan became so big and why it's continuing to grow. If you go to the article, they actually have some video. Roughly 5,000 Central American migrants walk through southern Mexico towards the U.S. border. Here's what a few have to say about why they're traveling north. And the article is by Kevin Seif and Joshua Partzlow. And why? How do you say that? Huixtla, Mexico? Huixtla, Mexico. Edith Cruz was sitting at home in central Honduras, scanning Facebook on her phone, when she saw the post about the caravan on a community news page. It was October 12th. She and her cousin had just opened a small business selling tortillas, and they were confronted by a gang threatening them with death if they didn't hand over their profits. She looked at the Facebook post. An avalanche of Hondurans is preparing to leave in a caravan to the United States. Share this. Within 3 hours, her bags were packed.
Okay, now I want you to stop for just a second.
All right.
I want to talk to the audience. I want to tell them how preposterous it is that this is an organic thing that just happened because people were on social media and they all just got together on the same day, without there being a massive amount of organizing and preparing to gather up these people. And in order for people to just pack their bags and get ready to leave in 3 hours, anyone traveling and migrating and putting their pellejo on the line, their skin on the line, their life on the line, as any migrant knows they would be doing, going through Mexico, going through Central America, and trying to cross the U.S. border, you would need to know, how am I going to eat? How am I going to get transported there? How am I going to cross the border with Mexico and the United States? Because the migrants that have been migrating all the way through into the United States for a very long time, for decades and decades and decades, they know the answers to those things because they're paying someone to cross them into the United States. They have money to transport them some of the way, and the rest of the way they have to walk, or they're taking some kind of dangerous form of public transportation, like jumping on that train Duke was just talking about, and having that carry them a large portion of the way on their trek, or having some money for, food. They obviously need to know. No one just packs their bags and runs out the door without knowing whether or not they're going to live or die. That's preposterous.
Yeah.
Why would anyone that claims that they need asylum to protect their lives take such risks with their lives? It just doesn't add up. It would not happen. So I am telling you, the only logical conclusion that one can draw from this is that those guarantees were made to every single person that signed on to come on this caravan.
Yeah.
All of them were told, we got that taken care of. The most important, I think, of which is, we can cross you into the United States. I've shown you that many of these Standing Rock phonies that are now headed to the border are saying they're going down there to do just that. To protect and safely cross people that are undocumented into the United States. Some of them have even, like Luis Monsiváis, a.k.a. Gutierrez, the felon who claims that he is a human trafficker and has been doing this for many years and is very good at it.
Has a family business.
And has a family business for money. Who is currently down there right now, are saying they're going to be doing with these caravan goers. They're claiming that's what they're going to do. That's insane. First of all, if you're stupid enough to commit those crimes, knowing the fever pitch, the people that do that are usually Mexican nationals who cross over the border, people all the time, and who know the route, who know the safest, most secret route, who are constantly watching and monitoring the border and know where to cross, when to cross.
Yeah, and they don't do live streams of where they're going to take people and show you and broadcast it, and like he did the other day, and we put that video up and show exactly where they're going to cross and how well it works, and that they don't do that. It's just like there are no military there are no people there are no border patrol there, but they will be if he's actually doing that, because he just broadcast exactly where he was going to take people.
I don't think that's all for show. I mean, I'm telling you, this is all theatrics. He doesn't know how to cross people any more than he is a finder of lost dead souls, like he claims. They make things up any more than Marcus Mitchell got shot in the chest.
Yep.
It's all made up. They're very good at theatrics for money. They want your PayPal, they want your sympathy, but their stories don't make sense. They don't hold water. No one would be stupid enough to announce where they're going to be smuggling people into the country. You're either an idiot or you want to get people arrested. You want to get yourself arrested. I don't know if these people are working for the private detention centers that they're going to be funneling all of these caravan goers into, or if they're working for people in Hollywood or with a political agenda so they can help Trump pass his law or them pass theirs, them get their policy agenda heard, and people become outraged at the attack on these poor caravan goers that are unarmed, a violent attack by the military. The gamble that whoever this is paying for this and supporting it is taking is the lives of the people that are unwittingly taking part in this charade. Those are the people that are going to end up in detention centers, that are going to end up in jail, that are going to end up with a bullet in their head. Those are the people that are going to suffer the consequences of these Standing Rock phony actors, charlatans, whatever the hell you want to call them. And the people of Mexico are also going to suffer the consequences. The government of Mexico is also going to suffer the consequences. So, first of all, guarantees must have been made of these things that I am telling you, and it looks like it's borne out. I translated part of a video to you from one such group that is live streaming it with the Caravan as they go. And he's interviewing people. He put up a video of himself saying that the buses just dumped him off in a location that they weren't told they were going to, and that they weren't being told where they were going to next, that they didn't feel safe getting on the buses, that the accommodations that they were promised of protection along the route were not being met. So it's obvious from their own words that people in the Caravan expected all of these things and were promised certain things. They had expectations, and that is why they come off this way. That is why they are so demanding, because they were told things were going to be quite different, and they weren't turning out like that. So, other questions that people had from this article, it says, on Tuesday, they stopped to rest in the small southern city of Huixla, washing their clothes in buckets of water, sending messages to friends and family from internet cafes, accepting whatever donations local residents were willing to offer. There was word that hundreds more migrants from across Central America, drawn by the endless media coverage, were on their way. So, one of the ways that people were brought to Standing Rock were that Hollywood sends some celebrities like Shailene Woodley and others that have tens of thousands of followers and millions of followers possibly, and say, come down here, we need you, we need your support, and make it look like it was Lollapalooza.
Yeah.
Make it look like it was Burning Man, so that people would go down there and form part of the charade, wittingly or unwittingly. And they all, of course, and in the aftermath, they try to make it appear that this all happened organically, but as we know, it doesn't. This kind of thing just doesn't happen organically. Yeah, they set up groups in which they were probably looking for people who were interested in traveling to the United States so that they could get people to sign up. And they probably put in these groups that there was a lot of promises made to them, including the fact that they could get them across the U.S. border and get them asylum in the United States that has a pathway to citizenship. Like, that is a big, big lie to tell tens of thousands of people. But somebody told these people that, and those people in that group, some of them are in on this and know that ain't going to happen, and that what they're really there for is a violent clash with the U.S. military and Border Patrol for show, for whatever cause their agenda is backing, and are going to get a lot of people hurt and possibly killed. But the fact remains that when this was all orchestrated in Honduras, now in El Salvador, they had media support. Mm-hmm. They had social media support, and they had networks ready to launch this message through those networks, through their celebrities, through their whatever, what have you, so that they could keep constant growth on that caravan and mask all of the people that were intentionally there, ready to come to be in the clash Okay.
Wow.
Yeah, thousands and thousands of innocent other people went to Standing Rock, just like thousands and thousands of other innocent people, and people, quite frankly, who want to believe this lie. If it feels like it's too good to be true, it's probably too good to be true, just like Standing Rock was. You know, this idea that everything was free. They had this whole Burning Man thing that they wanted to mirror and, you know, Columbus onto Standing Rock, which was really gross. You should know, Lolly B, because that's one of the things you wanted to bring to Standing Rock. That's what a lot of these people did. So there, this utopian camp society, people called it a village, and Lolly's rendition, novellic rendition there of her memory of November 20th. She was talking about how she was walking out of her tiny yurt in her village of village.
Yeah.
You weren't living in an ancient civilization, pendeja. You were at Standing Rock at a protest camp that was fabricated and organized with money and support from a variety of different NGOs, politicians, governments, etc. So know that that's part of what is going on for this too. And the Honduran government claims that community activists led by former legislator named Bartolo Fuentes was initially behind the group, intending to malign the country's leaders. He's trying to say that the country's leaders are dictators, that they are causing people to have to flee for their freedom and for their lives because of this dictator, this totalitarian type dictator that is making people unable to survive because of the economy, because of the lack of work, because of the lack of stability, because of the violence, the chaos. I don't want to take a position on Honduras and whether their current government is or isn't a dictatorship, is or isn't repressive, is or isn't starving its people out, is or isn't creating crises in the country. All I can tell you is that all of Latin America has had United States with their fingers in their government and policies. And when we don't like who's democratically elected somewhere, we stage a coup like we did, we helped to fund in Honduras. So if this has happened to Honduras, and when it did happen, when the coup happened, there was a massive flow of people that came up from Honduras to request asylum, many of whom did receive asylum because of what we did. So it was important for the media to report that there was a coup that was funded by the United States, and so that we would take conscience and recognize that. And as much as people complain about these refugees fleeing another country and these problems, they're also fleeing because we helped to create the conditions.
Exactly.
What were you going to say about that, dude?
Well, I just think of Vietnam when at the end of the war, there was an exodus, and we told people, you can come to the United States. And people did. And people complained. I remember they called them boat people, and there's the people who were very frightened of these migrants that were displaced because of our doing, of our warring in their country and destroying their country, even though there was another force that was trying to do that to them. But our record in Central America is horrible. All over, Panama, all over the place. We've caused so many problems.
Nicaragua.
We've put dictatorships into place.
Argentina.
Yes, we've put
Chile.
We've
Venezuela.
It's all over. It's horrible. A lot of the problems that these countries are experiencing are our fault. They're because of the American interests, and the American military and the CIA that have went down and done coups and have murdered many thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of people, and destroyed economies and kicked people off their land. The repercussions of that are still visible today with the poverty, and then people wanting to leave those countries is our fault. And we say, you can't come to this country. You can't actually apply for asylum when we cause the problem that you would need to in the first place, that's disgusting. And, we got to look at our recent history. I mean, this stuff's not that long ago. It's very well documented.
But to stage a caravan that is being this disrespectful to their host country, Mexico, that they're traveling through, that are because of the way in which they're coming in these massive amounts without real clear plans being given to the people that are participating in the caravan as to how exactly they're going to cross them into the United States.
Mm-hmm.
Because therein lies the encroachment problem, the overpopulation problem, the lack of resources problem that this is creating for Mexicans, right? And also what it's going to end up doing to the innocent bystanders that are part of this caravan when eventually there is a violent clash between the Tijuanenses, the people of Tijuana,
mm-hmm.
and the caravan, and or the rush toward that border entry finally occurs, and they have to call in the military, and there's a violent clash between the military and the caravan. All of those scenarios are going to end up horribly for the people in those caravans,
mm-hmm.
in those situations,
yeah.
for the border patrol, for the military people involved, for everyone. It's going to be horrible. The outcomes, the optics, it's going to be horrible. But it's going to be a perfect excuse for President Trump to enact policies, laws against immigrants, against asylum, against DACA, against everything. And also, for the win, get his funding for the wall.
Mm-hmm.
That I can promise you. It says that this Bartolo Fuentes, and like I said, I don't know in Honduras how bad things are, but what I do know, what I can tell you about this guy that started the caravan, or that helped to start the Honduran caravan, is that he has a political agenda, right? That's an admission on his own part. He wants to show through the caravans, people speaking out, that the government is bad and that the government is causing its people to flee en masse. What we do know is that there was a coup that we helped fund a couple years ago that caused a massive outpouring of people from that country, but it's not happening now.
Yeah.
There's no current war. There's no current violent... Gang attacks happen every day in places where those gangs have stronghold. Narco kidnappings and those things also happen every day. All of these things that people are saying happen every day. They have never before been the catalyst for 10 to 15,000 people all deciding to come together and travel in one certain direction and behave in the way that these people are. It's unprecedented, and it's unprecedented because it's inorganic. And something is rotten in Denmark.
Oh, yeah.
Now, this group say that the bulk of the migrants are from Honduras, okay? And there's clear evidence that Bartolo was the one that created it. He was the one in front of media. He wasn't the one at giving his face at events. The ambassador to Honduras' ambassador to Mexico told the media, told the Washington Post. Rivera Montes said, this is the ambassador of Honduras to Mexico, that this Bartolo Fuentes was, quote, trying to show Honduras as a failed state, which is totally false. Now, we've already helped to fund one coup in Honduras. Now, there is a man, this man, that wants to make Honduras look like a failed state. What happens after someone declares, especially after the United States declares a country a failed state?
They go and they loot it and rob it and seize it.
We invade it and we seize it.
Mm-hmm.
That's what the United States does. Who, in their right mind, in the progressive anti-dictator party, the leftist party, would want to get their country invaded by America? What?
Yeah.
He's supposed to be a freedom fighter? He's supposed to be fighting for the people of Honduras by destabilizing his entire government? That seems kind of a strange way to go about it. And he says, Vice President Pence, in an interview with the Washington Post on Tuesday, said that the president of Honduras told him that the Caravan had been financed by Venezuela's left-wing government.
Really?
Although there is no evidence to support that claim. And, I know that Vice President Pence isn't President Donald Trump, but this administration and their voice, their speakers, whether it's Kellyanne Conway or Sarah Huckabee Sanders, all seem to be good at lying and or, making up things, like the President Trump's recent claim that the president of Finland told him that they managed to avoid wildfires by raking.
Yeah, exactly. Raking the snow.
He just makes things up for, whatever reason. But, take it with a grain of salt. Pence claims that Venezuela's left-wing government might be financing this. What advantage would it be for Venezuela, who's almost a failed state themselves at this point? The people are starving. Things are really horrible. What would they benefit from destabilizing the government of Honduras? Are they doing it as a favor to wrap it up in a bow for Trump for Christmas? I don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
I have no idea why someone would do that to their own country and to their own people, but it's worth noting. I think it's very important. I don't know if Vice President's claim that the Honduran president told him this is true, so we don't know if Venezuela or other countries are involved, but we do know it's not organic. Fuentes told the Post he was merely helping to connect small group. He was just
helping out,
just setting a platform up for them. In September, however, there were posts on Honduran Facebook groups about the plans for the Caravan by Fuentes saying this: these people who have normally migrated hidden day by day have decided to come together and travel together to protect themselves. Well, the truth is, I'm here to tell you, the truth is, that's not the real reason. The truth is that they don't have to pay transport, food, shelter, or the thousands of dollars that most migrants need to collect, borrow from the narcos or from other people or loan sharks, or I don't know what they do to get $10,000 or $3,000 to $10,000, but that's what they all need. That's what they all have to gather together. Every single one of these migrants that are traveling, crossing the border, they're going to have to pay a coyote $3,000, and that's if they make it to the border in one piece and with the money they need to pay that coyote. Because if they get robbed along the way, if they get kidnapped or killed, then, you failed.
Yep.
But that's normally how migrants travel. These folks, many of them would never have migrated if not for those promises. They couldn't have migrated if they wanted to. The only way that someone would migrate, even if they couldn't afford it at all costs to their life limb, knowing that they might not even make it because they're going to starve to death, is someone that's truly leaving for their life. Someone that doesn't have any option, that the only option is run or get killed. And that's a very small number of people. increasingly those people are coming from Central America, and the migration of Mexicans over the southern border of the United States is a net zero for like the last 6 or 7 years.
Mm-hmm.
So the urgency with which Trump is trying to stir up fears about the southern border security and the need for this wall that he would love to get the money and the financing from, and the win that it would give him in his ability to permanently change immigration policy, fund ICE, and do all of these other things that he wants to do, is to have staged on his behalf something that will drive people to be afraid.
Yeah.
And if it's already working for Mexicans, they're already scared of them. They never seen migrants do that at a gate and cops get beaten up. They never seen anything like that. They're like, what's going on? The Mexicans, who normally support and care for and are still supporting and caring for these people, even though they're finding it more and more difficult to be patient with what they're seeing them do, are also speaking out against them, because it is just without precedent to see people act in this way, talk in this way, not asking, saying, demanding, we will, you will. We're telling Donald Trump it's not his country. We demand our rights. I'm like, what? I'm not saying that people shouldn't stand up for their rights and speak clearly and be confident about it. But normally, and I'm just being honest here, the people that are coming to seek asylum are very humble, very poor people they just don't have that kind of an attitude. They just don't. I've been doing work with asylum seekers, with immigrants, with new Americans, with refugees from Honduras, Guatemala, El Salvador, Ecuador, Chile, you name it. I've seen it. I've translated for it. And I've never heard people talk like this. I have never seen people act like this. This is not normal. It reeks of being staged. Fuentes told the Post that he was merely helping connect small groups. And then, let me skip down to here. Fuentes has a long political career as an activist on the Honduran left. He is a former student leader, and he protested against the U.S.-backed Contra War to overthrow the neighboring Nicaraguan government. So he goes way, way back. He was elected to the legislature in 2013, and he hosted a radio show about migrating called Without Borders. He's a staunch critic of President Juan Orlando Hernandez. A week before the caravan started, Fuentes posted on his Facebook page a flyer about the caravan that read, "We aren't going because we want to. Violence and poverty is driving us out." Again, that's not the point, folks. Mm-hmm. Violence and poverty happens in Latin America every effing day. And it doesn't create these inorganic, orchestrated throngs of people marching through the country of Mexico, leaving, wreaking havoc in their wake and behaving the way these folks do. And it doesn't give this caravan or any caravan that follows it the right to do it either. And he is, I think, trying to cover for the fact that it is inorganic, that these folks wouldn't have migrated, but for the fact that they were given guarantees and payment for transportation, food, and shelter, and told that they would be crossed into the United States, which is not a promise that they should be making because they can't deliver on it. They can't. But he says also on his Facebook page on October 5th, "We're going to accompany these people. We will support them at least for the departure." So again, we're going to accompany these people. This has been echoed by Myron Dewey of Digital Smoke Signals, by all of these other people you've seen talking on social media, like Lolly B and all the Standing Rock veterans and all of the groups associated with asylum seekers support network. And there's also Pueblo Sin Frontera group, which I showed you on my last show, that are at the Tijuana border. They were also interviewed for this article, and they said, everyone wants to know who's guilty, who's behind this caravan, said Irneo Mujica, director of the Tijuana-based Pueblos Sin Fronteras organization, which advocates for this caravan and previous caravans, helping arrange routes and other logistics. There aren't any other previous. It doesn't
happen.
But there are future ones, probably.
Mm-hmm.
He said, but no one has the power to organize this many people. No one could engineer this exodus.
All right. Yeah.
That is a load of crap. Everyone tried to say the same thing when people said, there aren't crisis actors out of Standing Rock. There aren't people that are being funded to be out there. They're not
paid actors. They're not paid protesters.
I'm here to tell you, yes, there were. Not all of them were. There were a bunch of people that just went there organically out of the kindness of their heart. They got sucked in by the media coverage. Just like in this case, just like in this scenario, there were good people out there. There were bad people out there. There were innocent people out there. There were organizers out there. There was Hollywood actors out there. It ran the gamut. People that were completely in on it, and people that got sucked in and became part of it because it just started growing legs of its own after a while. And that's what's going to happen to this thing. But these people telling you no one could organize all these people.
Yeah.
Well, I got a story about Standing Rock to tell you. And you should go and watch all my previous programs on this topic on kpppfm.com so you would know. And that's why it's important that we studied it in depth and reported on it for 2 years and continue to report on the phonies associated with this inorganic movement at Standing Rock. Because look at what they're doing now. Look at what they're doing and what they're capable of doing. Now, it says in the article that within days of the caravan's departure from San Pedro Sula on October 13, almost nobody could pinpoint the group's official origin story.
Oh, wow. They buried it.
Isn't that how they did with Standing Rock, too? And it was so that you could... it's like Occupy Wall Street.
Exactly.
There's no leader here. And it just so happens that the organizer for Bernie Sanders, Winnie Wong, with connections to Seven McDonald and Hollywood and Francis Fisher and all of these people we've been talking about that orchestrated all of the stuff around the Bernie Sanders campaign, the Justice Democrats, the TYT station, and all of the political stuff that happened around Standing Rock. She started Occupy. She started that model of bury the lead. That came from Winnie Wong. Wow. So obviously she is involved in this as well. And believe me, they can orchestrate almost anything. You would be surprised. They could probably orchestrate a government coup, these people. And they probably likely are trying to do things like that. That's what they do. It says normally a Central American migrating to the United States would pay a series of cartel-like smugglers to make the journey, a sum that can reach more than $10,000. This caravan offered a relatively safe way to migrate, basically free of cost.
Wow.
And there is the punctuation point.
Yep. Exactly.
There is the point.
Yep.
Does it make migrating wrong? No. Am I attacking migrants? No. Am I attacking Hondurans? No. Am I attacking Salvadorians? No. Am I attacking activists that support immigration? No. Am I attacking the migrant caravan? No. I am pinpointing that there is something wrong with the people that created it, the people that are funding it, the people supporting it in the United States, the people trying to drive policy with it, make a name for themselves off of it, collect money from it, exploit it, and possibly drive a violent clash between people at the border that will give President Trump everything he wants, including his border wall funding. That's what I'm saying. And I think that if you fuel this fire, it will erupt in flames right around Thanksgiving time.
Mm-hmm.
Right around Thanksgiving time, folks. And I think that it won't stop there. I think it's going to keep going into December. It says in this article that this woman that was interviewed said, I didn't have the money to pay for a coyote. So the caravan was the only way. Yeah, it became a way because she wouldn't have been able to come here.
Yeah.
None of these people would have been able to come here. This was not organic. They went and collected a bunch of people who may or may not have had the need or the means to leave Honduras or other places in Central America. And they put them on a bus. They told them, I'm going to help you. We're going to watch you. We're going to feed you. And that's simply wrong. It's wrong to do that to a group of people who are desperate for a better way of life because it's exploitative, so that you can have your little clash of the titans at the U.S.-Mexico border. It's irresponsible, it's dangerous, and it's going to get people hurt and killed. I need you to know that. Also, I want you to think about the fact that, have you noticed Chapo Guzman has been on TV lately?
Yeah.
They pulled him out of the darkness somewhere. I hadn't heard or seen anything about Chapo Guzman. He's been in custody for a while. I don't know why they needed to parade him around on TV. And then I started thinking, I think President Trump is in a big pickle here, and he really needs to divert our attention elsewhere. And boy, if he could pull off this stunt at the border, or if the left, if they're the ones financing, can pull this stunt off at the border, it's going to cause the gridlock in Washington to move in one direction or another. Unfortunately, Democrats usually fail at stunts like this, as they did in Standing Rock. Many of the organizations that are tied to seemingly left-leaning organizations, completely flopped and actually turned people against them in the process. But whoever is driving this, y'all need to know that what is happening right now is that the government of Mexico is in jeopardy, just like the government of Honduras is being attacked by this man that started this whole thing and is destabilizing to the Honduran government because they're calling it a failed state or trying to make it appear that it's a failed state. And you know that usually leads to an invasion by by the United States of Latin American countries. I think they also want to make that true of Mexico right now by increasing the media coverage of this and other caravans coming through, and by also showing the political upheaval, the clashes, the violent clashes between so-called nationals and the other people, the refugees in the country. And then in the midst of all of this chaos, throwing out there into the media and putting a target on the backs of all of the people that Chapo is naming that run or have run in the past, in the recent past, the Mexican government, including politicians, including presidents. And you know that whatever you may think of those politicians, because you know what? They're all corrupt. They've all done bad things. None of them deserve your protection or your coddling, etc. But I'm talking about the stability of the Mexican government, something that it has recently began enjoying under AMLO that did not in any way represent the last nearly 100 years of Mexican history. So for a very unpopular president in Mexico, which the United States really dislikes, to be removed, to be destabilized, something pretty big would have to happen. And a huge political upset, a huge upheaval of a bunch of, high-level politicians and ex-presidents being hunted, being arrested, being thrown in jail on the word of a narco, Chapo Guzman, being prosecuted in the United States, all of these things, that could shake up all of Mexico. That could cause an instability in the Mexican government that would give an advantage to people that want to call Mexico a failed state. So, there you have it, folks. These are all my theories. Some of them are theories. Some of them are predictions of things to come. I've told you now that there is going to be a violent clash on the border, and the media is going to be there. And some of the Standing Rock phonies are helping to orchestrate it. Watch your backs. Spread this message far and wide. And help protect our troops from an orchestrated, unnecessary battle that could end up hurting or killing one of our troops. The people in the caravan, the innocent ones that aren't part and parcel of the plan to rush the wall, to hurt anyone, to create a violent uprising. The Mexican government that needs to maintain stability to protect its people and its country from a coup, from an attack from the United States or elsewhere. The Mexican people themselves, the ones that are angry and innocent of the claims being made against them that they're racist, that they're white nationalists, just like Trump, because they're simply angry at the way that they're being treated by these caravan goers as the host country. Spread this message to everyone that you can so that the people that are innocent and need protection in these scenarios can get it. Thank you for being here with me on a Mexican Crossing Lines on 88.1 FM KPPPLP Fargo Moorhead, and good night.